it's so good to understand and know that on the days that I may lack or the days that I'm not on my A game, I have someone that is fully supporting me, ready to go, never wanting to see me fail. And if I need that extra bit of push or pull, he's there to do that, and vice versa.
Welcome to the Power of PennWest. I'm your host, Dr. John Anderson, president of PennWest University. Whether you're a current student, a proud alum, or just curious about the PennWest community, welcome. Please stay tuned as we explore the stories, achievements, and experiences of the people who bring life to our campuses in California, Clarion, Edinburgh, and online. Welcome to the Power of PennWest podcast. Welcome back to the Power of PennWest podcast. And today, love is in the air as we explore the magic of college romance and the lasting bonds formed at PennWest and its campuses. Today, we have two heartwarming stories from our alum who found love during their high school and college years together, and one story about a married couple that serves as athletic coaches. We'll dive into the unique journeys of couples whose relationships blossomed amidst the vibrant campus life, sharing their experiences, challenges, and the moments that brought them closer together. We begin at the California campus with the Camus family. Tim, who graduated in 1984, and Judy, who followed in 1985, they met as college students. Tim recently retired as a deputy inspector for investigations at the Office of the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration. He currently serves as vice president of California's Alumni Association. Since graduation, Judy has served in several roles, including a PR director, communications specialist, and patient care representative. She earned a degree from California in speech communication. The Camuses have gone on missions all over the world to help people in impoverished countries and have also recently joined the American Red Cross to help with disaster relief efforts. Next, we will have Danielle and Dayron Fleming, who coach the Clarion women's basketball team. Danielle Fleming was hired as the head coach of the Golden Eagles women's basketball program in spring of 2023, after a steady career of assistant and head coaching gigs. As the assistant coach, Dayron has worked alongside Danielle at stints in Columbia International and Southern Arkansas. We'll discuss what it's like working alongside your spouse while coaching and leading student athletes to success on and off the court. Finally, we'll end in Edinburgh with Jason and Katie Spangenberg. Jason Spangenberg graduated in 2014. He is the manager of the Edinburgh Borough. He earned his Bachelor of Science in Business Administration with a minor in accounting. In 2016, Katie graduated and is an owner and operator of Cafe and has served as an event director for the Edinburgh Highland Games and Scottish Festival. She earned her Bachelor of Science in Business Administration with a minor in Comprehensive Business. The pair remains very involved in Edinburgh community and assist with the marching band at nearby General McLean High School, which is the place that they met. We look forward to hearing from each of these couples, learning from their stories, and getting a little bit of their advice for our current students and their futures. We'll be right back after this message.
At PennWest University, we're making college make sense again for people who maybe thought college wasn't the answer. We're making college practical with programs tied to in-demand jobs that prepare you for success right away. We're making college accessible by breaking down barriers and offering more choices. We're making college approachable with faculty who understand where you're coming from and help you get where you're going. At PennWest, we're making college valuable again for people just like you. Learn more at pennwest.edu.
To begin our episode today, we're going to talk to the Camus family. They met at Cal U a few years ago. As a matter of fact, a few decades ago, and have lived tremendous lives. I'm so excited to hear their story and be able to share that with all of you. So Tim and Judy, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you for having us.
It's great to be here.
So let's begin. We're celebrating Valentine's Day this week and hearing from three different couples, one from each of the campuses. And I look forward to hearing your story. Why don't each of you tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and how you ended up at PennWest Cal. It was called Cal U back then. Tim, you want to go first?
Sure. I was a first-generation college student in my family, and originally I was scheduled to go to West Virginia University, but the prospect of going to a large campus like that was a little bit overwhelming, so I selected Cal U because it just felt great. It was the right fit for me, and I started Cal U in 1980 as a freshman, and I graduated in 1984 after 8 semesters. And I give a lot of credit to Cal U because of the size of the school, it held me accountable, and I actually had attendance kept. So it made sure as a young freshman I didn't lose my focus. And I was lucky while being at Cal U, I got to meet my beautiful wife, Judy. And after we graduated, we moved to first to Florida. I was a federal agent, and Judy was in medical care business. I'll let her tell you about that. And then we were transferred to Atlanta, finally to Washington, D.C., where I spent the last 20 years of my career in D.C. And then when we retired, we moved back to Pittsburgh and rekindled our relationship with Cal U. So I'll let Judy do a little background.
I was also a first generation college graduate in my family. Grew up in southwestern Pennsylvania and thought about going to art school, and had a friend who went to Cal State at the time and said, you know what, I think I need to get away from home for a little bit. Loved being at Cal U, got very involved in some activities. Of course, met Tim my freshman year. And like he said, we got married, moved to Florida. I graduated a year after Tim, moved to Florida, then Georgia, and to DC. I started off selling advertising because my major was speech communications, and WVCS was a big part of the campus at that time. And then went into the medical field and public relations, took some time off to be a stay-at-home parent, and then went back into working for surgeons. So being back in the area in Southwest Pennsylvania has been very important to us. It's helped us to reconnect with college, high school friends, and also helped us to take care of our aging parents. And that's been a huge reward.
Oh, that's great. Thanks to both of you. Take us back to those days before Cal U and PennWest Cal. When did the two of you meet for the first time? Do you agree on that story?
It's a dangerous thing whenever men have to remember dates of, years and dates. I believe it was 1982. It was the beginning of the fall semester. And Judy happened to be, I saw Judy on campus. She was friends with a young lady who my fraternity brother was dating. So that was the first time I laid eyes on Judy. I thought she was just beautiful, and I wanted to get to know her better. I met her through the Greek community. I was the president of Alpha Kappa Lambda, and Judy was a little sister at Delta Chi. So we socialized quite a bit in the Greek system. But first met Judy. I saw her, and never been the same.
It was, and it was actually outside of his fraternity house. He was picking up litter because he was, and I said, "Are you a freshman?" That was the typical line back then. And what's your major? And he said, "Yeah."
And that's the story. That's how all it began. Now,
yes,
you've been married, as I understand it, 40 years. Is that correct?
It'll be 40 years in the fall. We dated for 3.5 years before we got married. So we married very young, and it'll be 40 years this fall.
Well, congratulations. That is quite an accomplishment. So what was Cal State like back then? How does it compare to the campus today? What are your memories from then?
It was a beautiful campus, especially in the fall, with all the leaves changing right there in the Mon River in the horseshoe. And it was just such a special place, again, because the size of the campus, you got to know a lot of people. You saw familiar faces from attending the class and other events that were on campus. So my memories, of course, will always be very fond because I just felt very, very comfortable and a part of the nice-sized campus community. And we just had a lot of fun there. Can't say enough good things about it. We've been back attending various functions. We've been back since 2019 a couple times. 2018, after I retired, I got more involved with the Alumni Association. I was honored to be the commencement speaker at the December 2018 commencement. So just going back, but the thing I would like to note is just how much the campus has changed in a good way. The facilities, the buildings are beautiful and new. And I think it just has the students have the opportunity now to live in some very nice accommodations.
One of the things that I remember most about campus was the contrast between the old and the new buildings. Back then, one of the newer buildings was World Cultures. And of course, Old Main, and the characteristics of the old building were just really, really extraordinary to look at. And I don't know that we've mentioned it, but the big place at that time was to hang out on the wall at Mandarino Library. So when you came out of class, if you were looking for your friends, if you were looking for your date, people would hang out on the wall at Mandarino Library. And it was fun because, especially on those beautiful spring or fall days, and the weather's beautiful, and it's like, hey, what are you doing tonight? Who's getting together tonight? And it was a meeting place. And one thing I wanted to add real quick too is we know at least 3 or 4 couples who met at Cal State, Cal U at the same time we did, and who are still married today, and we're still friends with them. So, I mean, certainly, 40 years is extraordinary, but we also have friends that are at that same level that met on campus at the same time.
That's fantastic. It's fun that you at least keep in contact with them, but able to follow their story as well. Thank you for sharing that. So let's talk a little bit about how your university experience prepared you for the careers that you've had. And reading through your bio, both of you have had some tremendous experience, both in the professional arena and your service in church and your community, as well as other organizations like the Red Cross. Tell us how something you learned at Cal U helped prepare you for that.
I learned a work ethic and being held responsible. Again, I go back to the fact that Cal U, or Cal State at the time, took attendance. I had friends of mine who went to Pitt, Penn State, WVU, the bigger schools, and we would compare notes at break, and they would share stories of their lectures were held in gigantic lecture halls watching a video of a professor. Well, my classes were held in a regular classroom with 30 students and an instructor, professor who took roll. And the rule was you had 3 absences and then you would be marked down a grade. And a funny story I'll just share briefly is I was in a business statistics class at 8 o'clock in the morning on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And this was right after I met Judy. So that was very early for a college student and very early for a college student in love. And so I would be in class because I didn't want to be marked down a grade level, but I wouldn't always stay awake. And one or two times in particular, I fell into a hard sleep in the middle of class. And when I got my interim report, I saw that I'd been marked down a grade. I think I'd been marked down to a D. Really concerned me, so I went and met with the professor. I pleaded my case. I said, I'm in the class. I haven't missed 3. And he said, your body may be in class, but your mind is not. You're falling asleep. So I'm marking you down a grade, snap to it. So it's that kind of responsibility. And I took that into my professional career. And as I shared with the students at commencement when I spoke, I hired hundreds of people throughout my career. And I would always say to them, it's not where you got your degree. It's the fact that you worked, you met your requirements, you were responsible enough to turn in your work. I'm willing to take a chance on you. I don't care where you got your degree. I just care that you have one, because to me that shows a maturity and ability to get a task finished. And so I took that kind of the Cal U work ethic responsibility into the workplace, and it served me very well.
That's great.
One thing I wanted to add too about preparing for a career is that even though Cal State, Cal U was a smaller school, there were still people from all over the country who were there, people from all over the world, even back then. And that definitely prepares a person for being out in the professional workforce and how to deal with different types of cultures and personalities.
That's great. It's neat that they had that level of diversity back then, as well as we certainly do now, for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of students listen to this podcast. A lot of faculty and staff and alums listen to the podcast, and they would be curious to know a little about each of your journeys since you graduated. So you finished in 84 and 85. You talked about the locations you lived, Florida some, Atlanta, which is a place that I lived for about 20 years, and DC. But give us a couple of your career highlights. What were the things that you were most proud that you did or participated in?
For me, I got involved in an investigation early in my career as a special agent, where there was a group of anti-government extremists who were attempting to take over the government, and this was in Orlando. And so we inserted an undercover agent into the group. They were violent, planning to do horrible things. They had issued arrest warrants for myself and my family. And we ended up going to trial. It was an 11-week trial. I testified in that trial for 11 days on the stand, both direct and cross-examination. And at the end of it, we convicted 11 individuals. As a matter of fact, one of the defendants just got out of jail probably 6 months ago. I believe I was notified that he got out of jail. So that was probably the biggest highlight of my career that kind of got me prepared to take that experience. And then I got into management, and that's ultimately what led me to Washington, D.C. I retired as a senior executive at the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration, and that's the agency that oversees the Internal Revenue Service. Pretty big job, but I had a great time. I had a lot of other experiences, but I don't want to bore anybody with those. Yeah, it's provided well for Judy and I.
My degree was in speech communications, radio and television. And so immediately after college, I sold advertising for 7 regional newspapers in Central Florida, and then went to work at a regional blood bank as the director of public relations, doing presentations, radio and TV interviews about the importance of donating blood. After being there, had our son and went to work at a large hospital where I was a communications specialist and helped educate the public about different screenings and things that the hospital offered. My education at Cal U helped me to be able to relate to people and just be able to have conversations and know how to send out direct messages. And I think that that's something that parlays into everyday life.
That's great. Great stories from both of you. I'm curious, as you've had the chance to return back to the Pittsburgh area, you're starting to get back involved in your alma mater in a number of different ways, but the two of you are also involved in a whole lot of things. Your church community, your local community. What is it that motivates you to stay engaged and keep helping?
I think both of us coming from Western Pennsylvania families gave us a work ethic and a service to others ethic. We just got involved right away. We just want to help other people. It just feels good to do so. We're very involved in our church. When we were in Washington, we lived in a little town called Woodbridge, Virginia, about 20 miles south of DC. And I commuted into the city every day, but we found a great church there, and we got involved in international mission work. And the mission focus was to go to Mexico and put water treatment plants, water purification plants in tiny remote villages because people don't have access to drinking water. So that was a very meaningful experience. I led multiple mission teams on that. I used some of my experience as an executive in law enforcement to lead members of the church on those mission teams. Judy's been down there with me, and she's gotten to experience the difference she can make in people's lives. And then, so when we moved back to Pittsburgh, we got very involved in our church here, and we just came back from a mission trip to Honduras, and we went on that together. And then we founded after the hurricane in North Carolina, we decided to become volunteers with the Red Cross. Judy?
Tim said that we wanted to volunteer with the Red Cross. We saw, North Carolina, Florida, the devastation from the hurricane, and said, oh, we could probably help at one of those food banks or something. And we did help with the food bank at church here during the pandemic. But so we started signing up for the Red Cross, and we had no idea what was involved, that it was 40 hours of online training to be a part of a disaster assistance team. And the disaster assistant teams for the Red Cross not only set up shelters when there are natural disasters such as wildfires, hurricanes, tornadoes, and things like that, they also provide assistance to areas locally when somebody has a house that burns down. The Red Cross Disaster Assistant Team goes in and helps find those people a place to live after they've lost everything. They find them a place to live, they find them assistance, whatever they need immediately, and also as a follow-up after that. So like Tim said, we're in the training stages right now. Unfortunately, Pennsylvania has the largest number of fatalities for house fires in the country. And so when we learned that, and that 90% of the Red Cross are volunteers, we knew we had to get in to help. We were asked to go to the wildfires in California to assist there, but unfortunately with the timing, and because we are new people, new trainees, we didn't feel like it was the right time for us. But that's something that we'll do in the future, is deploy to one of the areas for 2 weeks at a time and help set up shelters and food banks. But we've always had the feeling that you can't always just take, that you have to give back to society in some way or another. And so we're active retirees. We exercise a lot. We start our day, what's our plan for today? And we enjoy helping people.
That's tremendous. What advice would the two of you give to young college students who may be listening, who are in their early 20s, figuring out what they want their contribution in life to be, where they want to work, and maybe they're dating somebody trying to figure out how to navigate that relationship. Give us your best advice to that type of student.
The important thing is to find somebody who's compatible. They have the same work ethic, similar work ethic that you do. They view money similar to the way you do, and they either are interested in having a servant heart or not. It's okay if you don't, but just make sure that it's so much better when you can do things together and when you can serve together, because you need each other's support when you're trying to help other people. So, it's obvious, but the compatibility issue on major life things, if you have a high work ethic and you're dating somebody or friends with people who do not, that's going to be an issue later on down the road. And if you love to help people and your people you're hanging around with do not, eventually you're going to find yourself moving away from those people. So yeah, just go into it with an open mind, be flexible, be willing to change and learn and grow. Yeah, life can be great, but you have to be willing to sometimes change, grow, and admit that you're wrong.
Well, I was going to add to that and say too that realizing that it's not going to be a smooth road. I mean, we've learned so much about each other, but we've also grown together. And with the understanding that I may be having a bad day, but you're not. So we bring each other up. And just understanding that there are going to be ups and downs. There are going to be family things that come into your life that you may not agree on. There may be outside things, but just find that common ground.
That is such wise advice. Well, we'll prepare to wrap up here, but this has been so fun to talk to you, Tim and Judy, and thank you for joining this section of the podcast as we celebrate Valentine's Day this week and many of the couples who had the chance to enjoy their college years together and begin their life here at PennWest or one of its campuses.
Thanks. It's so nice to meet you. And again, a big Western Pennsylvania welcome to you and your family.
Well, thank you very much. I look forward to connecting in the future as well. Appreciate what you do for staying connected to the campuses. Well, we now have the opportunity to talk to two of our fantastic coaches at PennWest. Both of these coaches happen to be on the Clarion campus, happen to coach the same sport, and happen to spend a lot of time together. So we welcome Danielle and Darren Fleming. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Super excited to have this conversation.
Does it ever get confusing when people say Coach Fleming and they don't know who you're talking to?
At the beginning, yes, but we try to make it clear, when introducing ourselves, who's who. So I go by Coach Fleming and he goes by Coach D. Sometimes they'll call me Coach D because I'm Danielle Fleming, but we try to correct quickly.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining me. Really excited to share your story. And it's been so fun to watch a number of your games this year and see that the way that you coach. I love that it's fast-paced and intense, and it's an enjoyable event to participate in, and you're building great success. So thanks to both of you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
As this is Valentine's week, we're getting into your love story a little bit. So tell us a little bit about each of you, where you're from, where you grew up, and then let's talk together about how you met.
So I grew up in Columbus, Ohio on the South Side. I went to Hamilton Township, and then I was 18. I want to say I was working at Bob Evans. I lived with my Nana. Somebody walked into Bob Evans, and that's where I first met Dayron. So that's kind of the beginning, and I'll let him tell his story. Okay?
Yeah. The theme will be our stories are pretty similar because we've spent so much time together. But same, born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. Like she said, we met. I was 18. I might have been 17.
Yeah, I think you're.
I might have been 17 when we first met. I was a senior in high school. I just happened to be at Bob Evans in Columbus, Ohio, and that was the first time our paths crossed. It was just a happenstance. We just happened to meet. And then, some months later, we kind of start talking a little bit on, that lovely thing we all like, Facebook. Facebook always keep us all connected.
Yeah.
So we started just kind of chatting a little bit on Facebook, and, things just kind of
went
from there.
So after that first meeting at Bob Evans, who looked who up on Facebook first?
I don't recall.
Back in the day, I'm not sure if it does it now, but Facebook used to have a green icon to show that you were on. And mine was on and his was on, but it was like 2 or 3 in the morning, and Coach D worked at UPS Freight, and so he worked like a late night. He got off at like 3, and I had early morning practice or something workout, and I just couldn't sleep. So we were both on at the same time, and he was just like kind of came in and was like, "What are you doing up?" And I'm like, "Well, what are you doing up? I know why I'm up." And so then the conversation just kind of started from there. Then the next day he asked, how was practice or how was warm-ups or whatever. And I was like, "Oh, that's nice." And then we just kind of started talking from there.
Oh, that's great. And so where were you playing basketball at the time?
I was at Columbus State and Coach D was at Ohio State. And then after that, when we got together, we both transferred to Ohio Christian University in Circle Bowl. And at that time, I'm kind of skipping some parts, but at that time we had dated for 6 months, and then he proposed 6 months later. So within within a year of meeting and dating, we were married. So we decided to go to school together at Ohio Christian, and then that's kind of when our basketball journey started.
Well, that didn't take long. First day of Bob Evans.
Yeah, it didn't. It didn't. And it's kind of crazy when you think about it now. When we were young, we were just young and in love. You know what I mean? So everybody's looking at us like we're crazy when we're 18 years old, telling everybody we're about to get married.
Yeah.
And we're like, what do you mean we love each other? Why wouldn't we? But 15 years later, you know what I mean? We look back at it and that's, we have a career where we work with, 18-year-olds to 22-year-olds. And now we look at our players, we're like, we couldn't even fathom one of y'all showing up getting married.
That's great. Well, talk us through that journey. So you got married really pretty young and went through the college experience together. Talk us through that college experience. What was a typical week like for the two of you while you were in college?
So we lived off campus, and we commuted probably about 45 minutes to our campus. And so I like to tell people we were grown very early. I was a junior and he was a sophomore. And we would get up about 5 a.m. and we would drive to Ohio Christian University. We both would take our classes and we would stay up there all day because I had practice at 3, and he would stay and sometimes watch practice. My coach was super awesome about just allowing him to kind of glean information and help out wherever he could. And so he would sometimes watch practice, rebound for me after, put me through some drills after, and then we would leave campus around probably about 5, and then we both had jobs because again we were grown. At an apartment. So we would go home and maybe spend 20-30 minutes, and then we both had to leave and go to work. So I worked at Applebee's and he worked at UPS Freight. And then I got off around midnight and he got off around 1 in the morning. We would go home, sleep for 4.5 hours, and then do it all again. And it's crazy. When we look back at it and we talk about it, it's crazy, but that was our life for 2.5 years. On game days, of course, I didn't work. And then it was pretty cool. Shout out to our coach, but when we had long road games, she would allow him to come. So he would ride the bus and, he would be at our games. And it was just a cool experience to be able to do it together. And I tell people all the time, especially like our players, they think they have it rough when they're in the car and their parents and their dad are like, "Oh, you didn't play well," and this and that. Like try being married and having your husband, what we're doing all this and you are playing like crap. You're not working hard enough. And I mean, he would get on me, and no music on the car ride home, just stats. So that was a great time, but he really helped me in my growth period in finishing up college and playing. And then afterwards, we just kind of got into coaching. So that was awesome.
That's great. So talk us through how that marriage dynamic works and give some good advice to those people who may be getting married soon or preparing for that at some time in their life.
Yeah.
How do you handle that? Because both of you are together all the time.
I think it's just a lifestyle, honestly. When it comes to us working together, this is honestly, we tell people all the time, this is what we do. This is all we know, honestly. We've even immediately got into coaching. We were coaching 7th grade girls. Well, while we were coaching 7th grade girls, we were working at the same elementary school in the same district. You know what I mean? So even before we were coaching in college together, we were working together in the school districts. I think we spent about 5 years coaching high school and middle school before we got an opportunity to move up and coach college together. The moment we started coaching college, here we are, we're working together, and it's just a lifestyle. This is what we've always done. This is all we know. So for us, it's not, we don't look at it as work. You know what I mean? It's just what we do. We enjoy it. We enjoy each other's company. I think a big part of it is we don't we don't argue a lot. So, you know what I mean? Just in general, basketball, outside of basketball and marriage and things, we're not very big arguers and fighters. So, there's not very many times where we're not having a good time. So it's been fun. It's been fun. A lot of people ask us how we do it.
It's a number one question.
Number one question. Everybody's comment is, "Oh, I could never." But we love each other. I think the thing we always tell each other is, when we're doing the same job, working towards the same goal, and you're doing it with your spouse, the person you love, it's like, 100%, no questions asked, they have your back. You guys are fighting for the exact same goal. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And when that's the case, I feel like it's hard to not have success.
That is very well said. Thank you. You've had the chance to coach middle school, 7th grade girls, you said. Yeah.
Yes.
Where did you go from there? What other coaching stints have you had in between there?
It started out coaching 7th grade, and we did that together. This is 2012 maybe, but 2012 we start coaching 7th grade, and then the next year I coached 8th grade and he coached 7th grade, and then that next year I coached JV and he coached 8th grade, and then that next year I coached varsity and he coached JV, and then that next year, and the year after that we both start coaching varsity, and by the time we were 25 we had taken over our own program at a high school, and we have flipped the program around and took it from 6 wins to 15 wins and made the district finals. I mean, it was just really, really great to do it together. And then after we start coaching varsity together, I think we did that for 2-3 years. Then we got a call to both be assistant coaches at Southern Arkansas University. That was crazy in itself because Arkansas, we lived in Ohio. And Coach Collins, he was pretty awesome. We knew him because he was recruiting one of our players, and we were very instrumental in the recruiting process with our players. I mean, we would take them on visits and help them through anything. So we got to know him through that process. And when he went down to be the head coach at Southern Arkansas, his first call was to us, and we were kind of like, "Hey, thank you. Is there 2 positions available for both of us? We would like to stay together. We love this coaching thing, and we want to kind of do it together and rise up." And so he was just like, "Yeah, absolutely." So he took us both. We 2 weeks sold our house and packed up all our stuff and drove 13 hours to Arkansas, and we're there for 2 years. And so we spent 2 years there learning the ropes of the college game, and had a tough time that first year. And we went out, we recruited, and in that second year we had the biggest turnaround in D2, and we were like, "This is awesome." And then we got a call from CIU, Columbia International University, and they wanted us to take over their program and help them and turn their program around. We were like, "South Carolina? Okay, sounds great." So we went over there, and we was kind of same story, struggling program, and turned that program around. Had a great time, met some wonderful people, but we did it again together, and we got to grow as coaches and in our style and our philosophy. And then 3 years after that, Clarion was open, and we were like, "What a wonderful opportunity." And so here we are, and we absolutely love Clarion. This is a wonderful spot, wonderful place, and we get to be together. One of the biggest things was our AD, shout out to her, but in the interview process, I said, "Hey, I didn't want there to be any secrets, but my assistant coach is my husband. Is that an issue? Is that a problem?" And she said, "Absolutely not." And I said, "Yes." So that's kind of the journey.
That's great. So how does it work when the 2 of you sit down around the kitchen table and start sketching out offenses and defenses? Do you ever disagree? "No, we need a full court press here. No, we need man."
Yes,
Absolutely.
You've been listening.
The job never stops. It stops. There's always work to be done. What we say, because we work together, and we're the only 2 on staff at the current moment. What we say is when we're not working, Clarion women's basketball is shut down.
No one's working.
Nothing's going on. The place is shut down. So therefore, we kind of always work, and that obviously that varies in what that looks like. But yeah, we're always having some level of conversation. We might be sitting on the couch watching TV late at night, and then I'll have a thought pop in my head, and I'll be like, "Hey, what do you think about?" And we'll have a discussion about defense or offense for about 5 minutes, and then we'll just go back to whatever we were doing. I'll go back to watching TV, and she'll go back to reading her books. That's just a normal occurrence. We might be in the car driving to the store, and again, a thought will pop in our head. Hey, what do you think about what do you think about this kid that just emailed us? So maybe we'll have a quick recruiting conversation. You know what I mean? As we're driving to the store, and it's just constant. It's never ending. But I think we try to do a good job at least of balancing it out. Still focusing on us, focusing on things outside of basketball at times, because it can be overwhelming, you know what I mean, if it is nonstop, which especially in season,
This is our life.
All right, now let's have you each share some advice to students. What would you tell a student? What advice would you give them to be successful at the university experience? Both of you have been successful. You're giving back in tremendous ways to the community and to the campus and the athletic department. How would you advise a student to become like you and live the full life that you do?
Advice is to figure out what it is that you love to do and then pour everything you can into it. I think especially young students, what we realize is they want to make money. Everything is kind of driven by money, and I want to make money and I want to have a very successful career. And it's just like I get that. But the conversations that we have is find something that you love and the money will come, but you will enjoy it and you will wake up every day and it will not feel like work. And it doesn't matter how many hours you put in, it still will not feel like work. And that is the best, job advice that I can give, and everything else will come with it if you love it. In terms of relationship building, find the spouse or find someone who supports you wholeheartedly. We are working in an environment where we have to be competitive, but we don't have to compete with each other. And I think that is important and something that we always keep in the forefront of our mind. We are competing with everyone else, everyone else is our competition, but never each other. And so it's so good to understand and know that on the days that I may lack or the days that I'm not on my A game, I have someone that is fully supporting me, ready to go, never wanting to see me fail. And if I need that extra bit of push or pull, he's there to do that, and vice versa. The heart eyes go away at some point in terms of, you see someone for who they are on their good and bad days, but find someone that's going to love you through that no matter what. That's going to encourage you and push you to be the best and never let you settle. And I think that that is something that we have, and I encourage my players, especially, because there's such great athletes, there's such great students. I want them to find the best job and the best partner and the best life that they can have. And so that's always something that I personally am pouring out as a woman. I want them to live the best life that they can. So that's my advice, and I'll give it over to Coach D.
That was great. No, everything she said, ditto. I'm a big believer in things have to be bigger than you. You know what I mean? You got to find something, and in success, you've got to make what you're doing bigger than you. It's got to be more important. It's got to be about something else, because then you'll fight for it. You know what I mean? It'll keep you encouraged. It'll keep you going. Sometimes, kind of like Coach Fleming's saying in terms of the financial side of things, you know what I mean? If you're only focused on the financial side, if you're only focused on how far you personally can go, eventually the love, you know what I mean, the passion will start to fade. So I believe you have to, it's got to be something bigger. It's got to be about something bigger. Your focus, your passion has to be bigger than you. We talk about it kind of in the basketball sense of things, in the team sports sense of things. If you only ever care about how many points you score, the moment you don't score, it's like the end of the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when you translate that to life, you know what I mean? If you only ever care about your personal successes and gains, the moment you have a rough patch in life, it feels like the end of the world, because that's the only thing you attach success to. So for me, it's always about trying to find something bigger than yourself and bigger than your own personal goals to, push somebody else forward, to push a different message forward that's helping the multitude and not just your own personal success.
That is grounded and very solid advice. Thanks to both of you. And
Yes,
Coach
sir.
Fleming and Coach Dees, thank you so much for joining us on the Power of PennWest podcast today. Really look forward to the game later on, and best of luck.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. We
Appreciate you
enjoyed it.
having us.
Yes, thanks, President.
We'll be right back after this message.
At PennWest University, we're making college make sense again for people who maybe thought college wasn't the answer. We're making college practical with programs tied to in-demand jobs that prepare you for success right away. We're making college accessible by breaking down barriers and offering more choices. We're making college approachable with faculty who understand where you're coming from and help you get where you're going. At PennWest, we're making college valuable again for people just like you. Learn more at pennwest.edu.
So, Jason and Katie, welcome to the Power of PennWest podcast. I am very excited to share your story. Can you tell us a little bit about yourselves, what you do now, and how you came to Edinboro University at one point in the past? Jason, let's hear from you first.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us. My name is Jason Spangenberg. I went to Edinboro University, graduated in 2014, and had a great time my whole time there. And I was lucky enough to have Katie by my side the whole way because we met in high school. And just a quick background of where we are today. I started working at the Borough of Edinboro a couple weeks before I graduated from Edinboro in 2014. And I still work there, currently the borough manager in Edinboro. Still happy to be around Edinboro and be involved.
That's great. Thanks, Jason. Katie, tell us about your story a little bit.
So I graduated in 2016 from Edinboro, but I have a little bit of lineage from Edinboro. My grandfather is actually a professor here. So he was in the physics department. So he retired in the early 2000s. I had familiarity with campus already. A lot of my friends growing up, we either had parents or grandparents that taught at Edinboro. We joked a lot when my friends and I were in high school, we'd be hanging out on campus and a freshman on campus would be like, hey, where's this building? We'd be like, oh, it's over there. We didn't go to school there yet. Growing up on the campus, I remember visiting my grandpa in Cooper Hall when he still had an office there. My mom went to Edinboro, and now my mom actually works at Edinboro still. And so it just kind of made sense for me to go to Edinboro to continue that lineage. So I graduated in 2016, and now I own the coffee shop in town, Bee and Bear Cafe.
It's so fun to see and hear your story about both of you being here, having those connections, and be able to continue them in your professional career. So let's go back, as it is Valentine's week and we're celebrating that. Let's go back to that moment you first saw each other. I guess it was in high school. You've been together more than 15 years now.
We met in high school marching band at Jar McLean. When we first met, we didn't really know each other that well. I was new in the band and I was surrounded by all these seniors and it was very intimidating. And I didn't really know Jason until we went to Disney World for the band trip that they do every other year. And all of his friend group decided to pick on me and my friend Summer. They would constantly be texting all of us in the group. And then we started, I think we became Facebook friends after Disney, and then started dating that following May after Disney. But met because of marching band. And now we actually are both staff members with Jar McLean's marching band.
I remember my first attempt at talking to Katie was in Disney. I remember we were sitting at breakfast the one morning, Disney World, and she was across the table from me. And I was a senior, she was a freshman. We never really interacted much during the year. This is the weekend after Thanksgiving. The band season's long been over. And I saw her around the field. All I knew of her was she was the blonde freshman flute. I didn't even know her name probably. We had 160 kids in the band or something. So, tried talking to her the one morning and she was probably too nervous sitting with a bunch of seniors, like she said. So we didn't have much of a conversation at Disney that first day, but we got to know each other over the coming months and finally started dating in May, shortly before I graduated high school. And she still had 3 years of high school left, of course, being a freshman. So I came back every year as a staff member for the marching band at GM remaining high school years. So I was still around a lot with the band.
This story just keeps getting better and better. Met in high school, and then you insert Disneyland into it.
Yeah.
Do you still have any memorabilia from that Disney trip?
I do, absolutely. Yeah, I have a drawstring bag that was from that trip, and I still use it on the band trip to this day. So it's kind of funny. Obviously, 15 years goes quick, and it doesn't feel like it's been that long. But I'll be wearing a T-shirt from the band season when I was in school or whatever. And like you said, we work with the marching band now. So we're working with 14 to 18-year-olds. Now I'm wearing a shirt that says DM Band 2007, and to me that's my sophomore year, which doesn't feel that long ago still. And the kids will say, "Wow, that's the year I was born." Or now it's even been that's before I was born. So it doesn't feel like we're any older, but the kids in band said the same age, and somehow we aren't the same age anymore. So
Yeah, they remind us.
That's great. Tell me a little bit how your relationship developed. So you left your senior year of high school, graduated, went on, and you were still in school, Katie. Did you all communicate through that time?
oh yeah, I we actually had pretty different college experiences despite both going to Edinburgh in terms of how we executed it. So I grew up in McCain, not far away, only 10, 15 minutes from my house was campus. But I lived on campus my entire well, I lived on campus 3 years and then off campus 1 year, but I lived in Edinburgh all 4 years. So I had more of the campus life experience. In my freshman year, I was in marching band. I did university singers my freshman year, jazz band every semester, all 8 semesters. I never worked on campus actually. I worked at Burger King in town in Edinburgh right before it closed, and I continued working at Burger King in Fairview after the Edinburgh one closed. But I spent my entire time on campus and around campus. Katie, you had a different timeline with your
Yeah, so when he even though he was 10 minutes away from my house, we still only saw each other on the weekends because he lived on campus and he didn't have a car. I didn't have a car. So we only really saw each other if we were able to get rides to or from wherever we were. So even though he wasn't that far away, he was still traveling and, he was on campus. But then when I started, I commuted. So I had a little bit of a different experience because I lived at home. And so I would drive to work every day. But it was nice by the time his senior year rolled around when I was at Edinburgh because I could stay during the day at his place and everything in between classes because I would have class at 8 a.m. and then not class till 6 p.m. at night. And I was like, I don't feel like driving home. But I worked on campus. So I had a little bit of a different experience where I was working on campus. I worked with the phonathon and worked in the dean's office and the bursar's office. So I had a few jobs on campus. So we just had different, it was weird. I was thinking about it, my freshman year, we definitely, because we were both business majors. So there were times where we did have classes around the same time. So I would come out of class and he'd be hanging out in Hendrix waiting for my class so we could sit and chat or go grab food or something before our next class. But it was different because he would be going back to his dorm or his apartment and then I would drive home to my parents' house. So
like she said about not being able to even have a car freshman year, somehow I didn't even have my license my freshman year, but regardless, if I did, parking was a lot tougher then, and I lived in Rose Hall, and I believe the freshman parking was only in the Macomb parking lot. So a lot of freshmen just didn't even have a car because it was very competitive to even find a parking spot. Or so that semester, my first semester when I lived in Rose, I walked to Burger King in Edinburgh, which wasn't that far. It's a couple blocks. Like I said, I did marching band at Edinburgh, so transitioned right from high school marching band to Edinburgh's marching band with the Spear of the Scots, and it was a very fun experience, a different experience. And I specifically remember, and there's even a picture to show this. So Katie's sophomore year in high school, there's a picture of me in my Edinburgh uniform on the sideline watching General McLean's championship performance because Edinburgh's band performs at championships after all the high schools just for exhibition. So I was there in my Edinburgh uniform. She's on the field in her GM uniform. And, actually, this was probably one of the greatest shows in General McLean history, 2010. And I was sobbing on the sideline watching them because it was the best show that I've ever seen.
So let's talk about where you went after you finished your university experience. Jason, you've told us you went to work straight for the borough and are still there. We've got a close relationship with the borough, the institution. Katie, tell us about your journey to being the owner and operator of a cafe in Edinburgh, Pennsylvania.
After I graduated, I actually was a business major because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I was like, well, business is a pretty good catch-all. So maybe I'll find something that I'll enjoy and I'll go from there. So after I graduated, as I mentioned, I worked on campus and my last job was in the bursar's office. And I actually got to work full time during the summer and then part time throughout my last year. And I really enjoyed it. I love the coworkers and the staff was great. And it was just a great environment. So while I was applying for other jobs, I was also applying to Edinburgh to work there. And during the summer, I actually got a job interview with at the time, the International Student Services Office, and was lucky enough to get a position as a clerk typist 2 in international. Worked there and with Linda Keitlinger was my boss and got the opportunity to work with international students and study abroad. And then Linda actually retired and I had the opportunity to move into her role. So I became the director of what was now called the Global Education Office. So I had the opportunity to work at Edinburgh for 7 years, most recently ending as the director overseeing all three campuses after integration of the Global Education Office. So I had the opportunity to help bring international students in to study at Edinboro, send students out. And Jason and I actually got the opportunity in 2022 to travel to Iceland with one of our study abroad groups led by Dr. Solberg. That was a nice perk of the job, was me being able to travel and kind of see what I've been sending students on these programs for 6 years, but I hadn't had the chance to actually experience it. And then, so we got to do that. And then an opportunity arose and a building was available. And something I've always wanted to do was own my own business. So we took the leap of faith. And in 2023, we opened Bean and Bear. So I've been there ever since.
I wanted to circle back on Iceland. It was such a cool experience for both of us. And I think obviously for Katie, like she said, she was working on these for 6 years and finally got to go on one. And it was so cool for me too, because I'd heard her come home from work for 6 years and talk about X, Y, or Z, be stressed about this, be happy about that. And to finally see her there, we're in Iceland, a bus full of students, and Katie's up at the front talking to the kids about what we're doing that day. And it was just, it was a really cool experience to be able to see how it all came together after. I mean, this is post-COVID, so we went through study abroad programs being canceled. And also Katie has a tight relationship with the Solberg family, Dr. Roger Solberg. So it was great to be able to have him be the professor leading that program. Our first experience traveling abroad together was a really great experience.
Well, this has been such a fun conversation. We went in areas that I didn't anticipate. We got Disney World down in Florida. We've got Iceland. What a journey the two of you have been on since your days in Edinboro and in high school. Let's finish up this section with you sharing with us any advice you have for students who are here at PennWest in Edinboro or in the other campuses. What advice would you give to them in how to take advantage of the opportunity that they have?
So as someone who worked there for 7 years too, and worked with international students and advised them a lot, my biggest thing is just get out of your room. Get out of your dorm room. If you're commuting like I was, don't go home in between classes. Just be on campus and be present, go to the dining hall, get involved in a club. There's so much, obviously academics are important and you're going to meet people in your classes, especially as you get up into your upper level classes and you have the same people from your major there and you get to know them. But especially both of us being from GM, when we went to Edinboro, we knew a lot of GM people already. And so it makes it hard because you're kind of in that comfort zone of, oh, I know this person, they're in my class, I'm just going to sit next to them. But I met a few people from working on campus that I'm still friends with and just going out and doing things. And that's how you make emotional connections to the campus. If you're in your room, which I know is easy to do, you're not going to find those activities that you just stumble upon, like bingo. And I know the one time I was walking on the track and there was ice skating in the gym and Pogue. So there's just so many things happening on campus. But, like Ferris Bueller, if you don't look around once in a while, you're going to miss it. It's true. You need to be able to go out and explore. We both love Edinboro's campus and there's just so much to do. It's just, you got to go out and find it.
Yeah. And I think what's just important for students to get out of their comfort zone a little bit. And if they're in band or chorus in high school, don't be afraid to get involved at the university, because I know there still is a very strong music program at Edinboro's campus with a great band and a great chorus. And we know the directors of both of those programs and they're great. I know it can be a little intimidating. Maybe you had your friends in band and chorus in high school and maybe none of them were there at Edinboro, but you're going to make new friends if you walk into the music building. If you go into Alexander or the rehearsal hall, you're gonna make a lot of great friends. Don't be afraid to get involved and go a little bit out of your comfort zone.
Jason and Katie, this has been so fun to hear a little more about your story. We're grateful that you are engaged alums and continue to be involved in a number of ways on campus and in the local community. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.